Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing a bit of Frogaak. That's right, we are playing Hogaak with our new best friend Psychic Frog. So Psychic Frog is a 2-mana 1/2. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, we draw a card. We can discard a card to put a +1/+1 counter on it. We can exile 3 cards from our graveyard to give it flying until end of turn. So we're using this as a discard outlet to put things like Hogaak and Gravecrawler into the graveyard, as well as the Vengevines. So we've got a little bit of support to actually give us cards to discard and make this grow. But what this also does really nicely is, if our graveyard is under pressure from, ley lines or endurances or whatever, we can just make a big frog and try and get there with a frog, which is pretty cool. So the way this deck normally functions is we're using things like Stitcher's Supplier to be putting a bunch of cards into our own graveyard. So we want to put things like Vengevine in there, and Hogaak obviously, Bridge from Below, and then we want to get something like an Altar of Dementia into play where we can start sacrificing our creatures through the Carrion Feeder or the... So we have the Carrion Feeder we can start sacrificing stuff through, or the Altar of Dementia. Altar of Dementia is best because we basically mill our entire deck, then mill our opponent's deck by recurring Hogaak a bunch of times, then using all of our Bridge from Below tokens, then mill our opponent out. So that's one way we can win the game. But we also have the Carrion Feeder, which allows us to recur something like a Gravecrawler, which also Stitcher's Supplier as a zombie, so that gives us more food for that to come back. And we can cast this a number of times and trigger Vengevines. We also can then put Hogaak into play, so that's kind of the jam we're trying to do here. But we've also got a neat little scam package in here of 4 Grief to disrupt our opponent, 4 Reanimate to obviously bring back our Griefs, or, sometimes we'll be bringing back a Hogaak or whatever is required at the time. And we've got a single Troll of Khazad-dûm just as another thing that we can put into the graveyard ourselves and bring back. So you've kind of got this neat little scam package to support the sort of more combo-tastic approach of the general Hogaak decks. Playing a busted card from the previous Modern Horizons and a potentially busted card from the new Modern Horizons. So, great partners in crime here. All of our lands have to tap for black, so we are pretty dependent on some non-basics for our off colours, like the blue here and a couple of green pips for when we want Vengevine or cards out of the sideboard. We've got Cabal Therapies as well, which team up nicely with Grief for take a look at their hand and then take out the bits with the Cabal Therapies. We've managed to squeeze 1 Surveil land in here as well, and we've got a Dryad Arbor that we can go fetch up, which is a creature to do things like Altar of Dementia with, or to convoke the Hogaak. So that's the main deck. Oh, there's a couple of Orcish Bowmasters there, which is a great card, obviously, but then it is 2 bodies, so it immediately lets us play the Hogaak. Sideboard-wise, we've got some Graveyard Hate, got a little bit of creature removal, we've got some more Hand Disruption, and we've got some Nature's Claim, and some Assassin's Trophy. So the Assassin's Trophy is a nice catch-all. The reason for Nature's Claim is Necro Dominance as a deck is very popular at the moment. It's basically, if you cast Necro Dominance on turn 1, you win the game, is pretty much what that deck does. So having more ways to disrupt that is important. So we've got a turn 1 piece of disruption here, another turn 1 piece of disruption here, and then another turn 1 piece of disruption for the Necro Dominance here. Did want to play Force of Vigor, but I don't think we have the green cards to support it, which means we're going to lean into Nature's Claim. I could have played Natural State just for Necro Dominance, but this can also clean up something like a Leyline of the Void, which is really important to get out of the way. So I think it was just best to have this as an answer that kind of bridges those gaps between trying not to lose the Necro, whilst also being able to deal with Leylines. Now, if our opponent goes first, and they are playing Necro, then we don't really have any interaction here. But maybe we can make them wait a turn by using an Underground Sea as sort of like a... making our opponent think in game 1 or 2 or whatever that we've got some counter magic because we have an Underground Sea. And maybe our opponents go slower, but I doubt it. Alright, that's the deck tech. Let's play some Frogaak. Remember to like and subscribe. It's frog time. We've got a bit of a weird one here as our opener. So we could play Carrion Feeder out on turn 1. And then evoke a Grief using our Bowmasters to then put a counter on our Carrion Feeder, but then what? It just doesn't really quite go anywhere. I think we can do better than this. This is an intriguing one. Right, I think I will keep this, and we're going to get rid of this Vengevine. So Hogaak is a card we can cast from our hand or the graveyard, whereas Vengevine, most of the time, is going to be popping out the bin. We can Cabal Therapy our opponent after we see what land they make and get some sort of feel for what they're doing. Or we can just start on a Surveil land and just have that free Surveil action and then go into turn 2 with sort of more idea whether we need to be Bowmastersing or Cabal Therapying or whatever. We could always Cabal Therapy a big scary monster and put it into play. Alright, we've got a Polluted Delta being cracked from our opponent. for a volcanic island. We're in Delver Town. There is a Mishra's Bauble. Building off a land. They're going to crack this immediately. They are indeed. So what is the choice here? We could go get a Surveil land and just try and Bowmasters, but I think we're better off just getting a Cabal Therapy off here. I'd like to name Days. If our opponent's going to counter our stuff, I'd rather they pitch 2 cards for it. Oh, we hit both the Dazes. Very powerful. Cabal Therapy right there. Does mean our opponent gets to make a Murktide Regent next turn, which is less good for us. It'll be a 5/5, which is quite the clock, and we don't really have any flyers. Oh wow, they're casting the Ponder instead of the Murktide. Alright, I will take that. Now we can then snipe the Murktide from their hand using our Orcish Bowmasters. Once this Ponder resolves, their Channeler will be a 3/3. They did not shuffle off that Ponder, but they might shuffle off of this fetch land. So it might have been just the 1 card they wanted. Alright, Orcish Bowmasters is not looking quite so hot right now. Bridge from below, that's not a good one, is it? I think we have to play the Bowmasters here and try and take that Murktide out of our opponent's hand. Which means we're probably on the Underground Sea plan here. Let's hope we can get this Bowmasters through. Our opponent's got a couple of mystery cards. Could be a Third Days, or it could be a Force of Will here. Right, we're just in. Right, I will Cabal Therapy, tagging our opponent, sacking the Orc army. We're going to name this Murktide. I'm really glad they didn't play it last turn. Right, they got a Questing Druid and a Force of Will. We can reanimate their Murktide and block with it if we want to. Use that to trade with the Channeler. But that's 7 life we have to pay if we reanimate their Murktide, which is a lot. We do need like a discard out or something. I don't really care about that wasteland. We've got the second land in our hand anyway. Now if they have another wasteland, then obviously we care a great bunch about what just happened. Back over to us, and we are struggling a little bit. Alright, I think we're going to go and get this Surveil land here and see if we can put something decent into our graveyard to reanimate. That's not really what we're looking for. That's got to go into the graveyard. Do I want to pay 7 life to get a 3/3 flyer? That is an awful lot to pay. But it allows us to trade with this. So it basically makes itself back. It makes its own value back in 2 turns, pretty much. But a Brazen Borrow would be nightmarish. Alright, I hate it, but I'm going to do it. Just our hand is not really coming together. We don't have the engines to get going here. This also puts more cards in our graveyard, which is something we need to do here. So we can get this Hogaak. So they're going to seek the beast at end step. Let's see what they find on their magical mystery journey into Beast Town. Right, so they milled off the first card. Well, they got a Daze and a Volcanic, so pretty low impact there. This Daze won't do anything because we're not going to play in their turn cycle here. They do get a Volcanic Island, so it is just a cantrip. But they're probably playing the Questing Druid out now, unless they've drawn something like a Murktide. Well, well, well. This feels like a Murktide. There it is. Right, so they have a 6/6. So that kills us in 1 shot. But their Dragon's Rage Channeler is no longer delirious. So what do we do here? We Cabal Therapy, target ourselves. Get rid of this bridge from below. Attack with the Bowmasters. They probably won't block the Bowmasters. Right, I think we're going to go to attacks and see if we can get... So we're going to miss out on 1 zombie token doing it this way. But if we put the bridge from below into the graveyard, our opponent's just going to block. It's just going to let this through. Okay, they're going to let it through anyway. Alright, that's annoying. So we're going to have to chump block here. So I think we Cabal Therapy ourselves. Yeah, we Cabal Therapy ourselves. Naming bridge from below. Then we sacrifice the Orcish Bowmasters to the Cabal Therapy, which will reset our Bowmasters and give us a zombie. Then we can take this Force of Will out of our opponent's hand. We are growing our Murktide slightly. Not that we're going to be able to grow it enough here. So now we can reanimate this Bowmasters. Puts us to 4, but we get to ping off this Channeler. And then we get to make a zombie Sorry, we've got the zombies here. So now we get to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we get to grow our Murktide enough to block. And we have an 8/8. All right. That was a pretty wild turn. A Brazen Borrower. That just kills us on the spot. Sure. All right. It's the one card we needed them to not draw. You gotta laugh sometimes. You can do all the work, have a really cool turn, and it doesn't go anywhere. And that's just Magic the Gathering for you. So I like having removal in this matchup. And Assassin's Trophy is a nice clean piece of removal too. So we've got potentially 5 cards that we're looking to bring in. What am I not so convinced by? We haven't seen if our opponent is splashing other colours or not. We only know that they've got the Questing Druid. It's unlikely they're playing the 4-colour Delver. That's sort of fallen out of favour, but maybe people are trying it again now Psychic Frog is in. But I think I'm going to board it if they're just Rug rather than 4-colour. So we probably want to go down a little bit on some of our graveyard stuff, which is hard to do considering our deck is built around doing graveyard stuff. Now we're keeping the therapies, keeping the grief package. What are we looking at here? Bowmasters obviously great. Carrion Feeder is something that might be able to grow out of range of their removal spells, so I quite like that. Maybe we're trimming a Vengevine here. Maybe we trim a little bit on the Scammy package just to have interaction on the board. Maybe the Hogaak can go, maybe one of the bridges. Try something along these lines. I'm not going to have a good time when Wasteland comes to play. That's for sure. But I am going to keep this because our hand does a lot of the things I want it to do. We can get our Stitches Supplier down early. Get some value off of that. Don't believe our opponent is going to Force of Will this one, but they might. If they Force of Will and snap off a Wasteland, I'm going to have a bad time. Alright. We've got a Vengevine. That is something. We're going to need to be able to cast 2 creatures in a turn. So we're going to need a land and another 1-drop to make that happen. No Wasteland, that's excellent. Tamiyo, Inquisitive Student. I'm not really sure this belongs in a Delver Shell. I don't rate this card particularly highly because the backside is really bad. If it didn't transform, I think this card would be better. And just giving you a clue every turn would be fine. But it's an interesting card advantage engine, I suppose. We can kill this if we want to. Please draw a land deck. Right, they're baubles us now. An Assassin's Trophy. That's not the one, is it? So the reason they bauble there is so that the card that they draw will be in their turn, so they're not going to get jammed up by any hand disruption we happen to have. So what are our options here? We can Carrion Feeder. That takes us further away from being able to cast 2 spells in 1 turn. But it does get us more stuff on the board in case we get Wastelanded. And that is something I'm a little bit nervous about. I don't believe we want to just fire off this this sack on the Stitcher Supplier to mill ourselves for 3. Right, that's a daze. Now we have to pass, and our opponent will just wasteland us into the bin. That's my guess for what happens this turn. So our opponent's drawn 1 card. If they draw and they've drawn a card for turn, so if they cast any cantrip, like a Ponder, then they get to flip a Tamiyo, but I don't think the flip side of Tamiyo is as good as the front side of Tamiyo. Just having a clue every turn is pretty potent compared to a Planeswalker that does nothing. Alright, so they are choosing to flip their Tamiyo. It's not a May. Once you cast your 3rd, or you draw your 3rd card for a turn, it has to flip. So the plus on this is to -1/-0 something, where whenever a creature attacks you, and then you can remove 3 counters to get a instant or sorcery from a bin, and then you can -7 it, which never happens, to draw loads and loads of cards. Yep, so our Stitcher Supplier is not likely to be dealing any damage. We've got a Verdant Catacombs. That is something for us. What is our plan here? So if we attack this, it just triggers and shrinks this. That's not going to work. I think we're just getting a Bayou here. We're sort of working towards casting this Vengevine. I don't want to Assassin's Trophy this. I do kind of want to Bowmasters here. The other option here is to Cabal Therapy, and then Cabal Therapy again, to our opponent's working with. What am I most scared of here? Like Murktide Regent's pretty scary. It's a case of, are we able to play around the days here, or do we need to play into it? I think we have to play into it because we're sort of, our aggro is blunted by this Tamiyo. Alright, we're going to go for this Bowmasters. They've already used A days. They're on the draw, so they probably have trimmed their daisies. They probably don't have the full 4. Alright, we're in. We'll ping this Tamiyo. So if they minus it, then it dies. So it's just going to get them back a ponder. And there's no point attacking here. Like I said, the minus on the plus on the Tamiyo will minus our creature. So may as well just keep back on blocks. I'm not expecting our opponent to have anything hasty in their deck. I know a few people have been messing around with Detective Phoenix, but it doesn't look great. So this shrinks all of our creatures, which is a bit tedious for us. But we can just Assassin's Trophy this if we ever get worried it's going to get to its ultimate. A Dragon's Rage Channeler. This is a creature we get to kill if we want to. Another Orcish Bowmasters, you say. Well, the last one resolved. So the highest value play here is to ping this down, then we can attack this for 1. I think because it worked last time, I'm going to just jam this Bowmaster. I think they would have countered the Bowmaster if they could. That doesn't mean they haven't drawn anything, but they probably would have cast this Channeler last turn if they had it, so I'm imagining they drew the Channeler. Let's ping this down. A Lightning Bolt targeting our first Bowmasters. They're trying to surveil a land into the graveyard, and they succeeded in doing so. That is a little bit annoying, but we can attack the... this will only attack for 1 though, won't it? Because of the trigger. So I guess we're just passing. We could have attacked with the Stitcher Supplier to see if we could put Hogaak in the bin. That's another option we had available to us there. But I'd rather use this Stitcher Supplier for our Cabal Therapy next turn. Right, so the Tamiyo is ticking up again. Maybe we do have to try and kill this now. A land would be quite useful here. We've got a land. Okay, so I'll play this out. Plan here is this attacks the Tamiyo, and then we can see if we need to replicate this now or not. We're just trying to get some action out of our opponent. I would like to Cabal Therapy my opponent here. Feels like they're just trying to sit behind this Tamiyo and get it to draw them 7 cards, which is an ambitious project, in my opinion. A Force of Negation. That's kind of annoying. I'll get Underground Sea. I'm going to let them surveil. And then if they keep the card on top, then there's going to be some pressure as to whether or not they... Okay. I think we have to trophy... Do we have to trophy this right now? We don't get to flash back this Cabal Therapy now, which is really irritating. Do we have to... I don't think we have to hit this, because it's only on 6. We can Fatal Push this Channeler. And then that means on our turn, if we have to, we can at least Assassin's Trophy around a daze. Sure, you can plus your Tamiyo. This is preventing them a reasonable amount of damage, but if that was like a Delver, we'd probably be dead by now. Is this something you want to fight over or not? Have to imagine there's at least a cantrip in our opponent's hand. Bowmaster is shutting off at this point. They do run a lot of them in their deck. Seeking of the Beast. So these will only be available this turn. So they'll go away at the end step. So they're not going to have the most chance to use these cards. An Unholy Heat is not nothing though. That's going to take out our Bowmasters. Goodbye Bowmasters. We've dealt with the Channeler though. So they've got 3 cards in hand. So we can hit this around a daze with the Assassin's Trophy. Or we could just try and play this Vengevine. Not actually the easiest choice there. Vengevine plays into daze. I think we have to Assassin's Trophy this now. Right, they had a Force of Will. Can't believe I'm going to lose to this terrible card. Yikes. I just don't rate the backside of this. It had to... They needed quite a lot of exact things to protect this. And like I said, if that was a Delver, this game would have been over by now. But they're going to draw 7. They're going to draw cards equal to half the number of cards in their library. And we could not flash in a Bowmasters. So our opponent should be able to win now. Dragon's Rage Channeler from our opponent. They should just be able to spam a bunch of threats. Wasteland. Goodbye Underground Sea. Dragon's Rage Channeler. Dragon's Rage Channeler. Craft Digger's Cage. Sure. That's going to make things a little more difficult. A Reanimate. Just after they have the Craft Digger's Cage. I think we can probably scoot this one up. So, I don't think that was a case of Tamiyo looking good I think it was a case of they had a lot of peripheral stuff around it that was actually doing the real work. So they had force, days, opportune moments, and they had some good removal as well in the Bolt and the Unholy Heat. That was really what made the difference. Like I said, if they had a Delver, they would have won the game earlier. They wouldn't get to do the cool draw a bunch of cards thing there, which is cool. But they kind of just had to sort of sit on this one thing for a while. If we'd have had an Abrupt Decay instead of an Assassin's Trophy, then that game would be pretty elementary to win, I think. Also, our deck didn't really do the most that round. All right, let's go to round 2 and see if we can do a bit more. I like this hand. For round 2, we've got the joys of Altar of Dementia. Now, if you've not played with Altar of Dementia, it's quite the ride. We just get to keep dumping more and more stuff into our graveyard. What I'm all about. Thoughtseize. So we might be losing our Altar of Dementia. We shall see. Prismatic Vista into Swamp is an unusual start though. We're taking the Reanimate. No respect for our Hogaak nonsense, really. Okay, we'll play this basic Swamp. I'd like to play a Stitcher's Supplier. Let's mill ourselves some more. That's our hand. Let's put the graveyard up here. Okay. So next turn we can jam the Altar of Dementia if we want to. And the turn after we can start popping off. Another Thoughtseize. Alright. We're probably losing the Altar this turn. Unless our opponent is a blue deck and really doesn't want this Bowmasters around. Yeah, they've taken the Altar. That allows us to really pop off and do some wild stuff. Alright, so we're in white-black territory here. Like sort of Dead Guy Ale / Death and Taxes. But I'm getting more of a sort of Dead Guy Ale vibe. Carrion Feeder. Right, let's go to attacks. Let's attack with some mediocre men. Carrion Feeder. Gravecrawler. And we can sacrifice a Stitcher's Supplier. If we find a Hogaak here, we can then just have our fill and get a massive creature. Now, they're a white removal deck, so it's certainly possible that our opponent can just, like, plow a Hogaak. We didn't find a Hogaak. We did find a Vengevine, which we can play next turn due to the Gravecrawler, Carrion Feeder business. We can sack the Crawler, replay the Crawler, etc., etc. So we have that going for us next turn. But if they can break up our Carrion Feeder, that makes things a little more difficult. But they're probably going to want to save their removal for the Vengevine. Can we Stoneforge? No, 3 mana. Recruiter of the Guard. This is going to be for a Solitude. That's my guess. Unless they got something more destructive they want to put into us. Plague Engineer on Zombie. I see. A little bit rude. Okay, I'm going to play the Stitcher's Supplier out first. Just finds a Hogaak. That makes our life a lot easier. Okay, a Bridge from Below. That's a pretty good one. Let's sacrifice this Stitcher's Supplier first. Now we're cooking. Does our opponent have a Solitude? That's what this pause could be. Right, no Hogaak in there, unfortunately. But we can take this Plague Engineer away from our opponent and bring back our Vengevine. This is what I wanted to do. Solitude. Pitching around the third path. They're going to exile our Carrion Feeder here. I would assume. Again, that's fine. That's what we're doing here. We'll name this Plague Engineer. They're left with just Samwise. So then we can cast this from the graveyard. Which then triggers our Vengevine. We'll play out this land. And we'll go to attacks with our 4/3. Up. Okay. I clicked through that somehow. Good times. Aether Vial. So we can ping this Recruiter down. They can get it back with Samwise, which is less than ideal. Stitcher's Supplier. I am going to play this out. Did not find the things we wanted. So we attack with these. They get to Samwise and get this back. That's really annoying. But I think we just have to work through it. Right, so we're going to go for this trade here. Okay, we can replay the Gravecrawler if we want to. Or we could play the Bowmasters and ping down the Samwise, which I think is the slightly better pick here. I suppose we... Do we have to see what they get here? They could get a Lion Sash. That might be something you want to ping down more than the Samwise. Let's just see what they get off of this. I've got one mystery card in hand. Let's see what they find. Another Samwise. Intriguing. So they can try and Samwise loop us if they want to. I think this means we are hitting the recruiter. Okay, that's pretty good too. We'll go attacks. So they're not going to block. No, they have to block, right? This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If we attack with everything, they have to block the Vengevine. Right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because they have to live in fear of a Bowmasters. Yeah, alright. Might as well take their last card and see what their other card is if we want that as well. Alright, they've had enough. Power of little graveyard friends got us there. So Fatal Push is something I definitely want in this matchup. I believe graveyard hate-wise, they're probably going to have Lion Sash type stuff. And maybe a Fairy Macabre they can tutor off of their recruiter. I doubt they're going to go full into Rest in Peace since they've already shown us they've got Samwise stuff going on. So I think we definitely want the Fatal Pushes, and it's a case of whether or not we want these trophies as well. And we'll trim on like the Reanimate side. Hogaak is definitely worse against the white decks like this. So maybe we can trim a couple of those. We still want the Vengevines because they're going to have Karakas in their deck, and that's going to make me very sad. The Bowmasters is kind of medium here. They're going to be having a lot of exile removal. And then you've got Solitude. So I think I'm going to trim a bridge here. That still leaves us trying to find one more cut. Is it an altar? So we're just going down into this more dirty, fair beatdown plan. Carrion Feeder, Altar of Dementia, 2 removal spells. I guess we'll keep it. I'm not enthused by it. We want to get the Altar of Dementia down before we play any creatures, I think. What's this going to be? An Aether Vial, sure. So we're probably just going to play a fetch land and surveil unless something good comes along. What am I worried about here? I think I'm probably better off just doing this, getting a surveil land, and then we can Cabal Therapy next turn if our opponent has like a Stoneforge Mystic they cast, and we can take whatever they fetched. That sort of does mess with our curve slightly in that we're not playing the Altar of Dementia on 2, but we can kind of play it on 3 without problems. I don't really like that Wasteland. Are we supposed to just power through? We've got 2 more lands in hand. Am I willing to send this into the Shadow Realm of Wasteland? We've already got 2 lands in hand. I don't think we can. That's really irritating. Maybe one day we'll also find a Psychic Frog. That would be cool. Right, so I think we don't want to get wasted off of our colours, so we are just fetching... We're fetching coloured sources here. We fetch a Bayou, they can't waste us off of green, but we need double green. For Vengevine, we only need 1 for Assassin's Trophy. Yeah, I think we are just fetching the Bayou here. Alright, let's get our Altar of Dementia in. I'm sure it's just going to get immediately Skyclave Apparitioned. But this gives us the ability to get some value off of all of our creatures moving on. I'm going to put in a Mother of Runes at end step. They are not. Right, there's an Aether Vial ticking. I think I forgot to mention in the intro, this was a donation deck I worked on someone with. They wanted to see a frog deck. And there's a lot of different frog decks out there. But we ended up doing something a bit more out there with the old Hogaak. Not that we've seen the frog yet, really. But okay, so we're seeing presumably a Stoneforge. Just a Samwise. Oh, they're getting back their Wasteland. Oh, okay. One of those sorts of players. I see. I love doing that myself, so I can't argue. I don't really like Samwise that much, but anything that loots Wasteland is good enough for me. Alright. Back in the Stone Age, but we have removal and they don't really have anything going on over there. Another land. Happy to see that given what's just happened to us. Do we want to Cabal Therapy our opponent here? We're holding up the Fatal Push. I think we're probably just holding up the push or the Surveil land. We don't really care about the first stage of the Ring Bearer. That doesn't do very much. It's just to do with blocking. So we can take 2 here. Get a Surveil land if our opponent doesn't have a Wasteland. Kind of move on with our life. Another Aether Vial. That's not really what our opponent wants, I don't think. So let's go and get our Surveil land. Oh, really? We're getting Oppo agented. A Skyclave, okay. I can live with that. For a minute there. Okay. Like, we're just stone cold to the Oppo agent. We don't really have any recourse to that. Hogaak, you can get in the graveyard. That is where you belong. That is your home. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we crack this, and we can put Hogaak into play this turn if we want to. We only have 1 Bayou left. We could get a Dryad Arbor. That seems a little bit reckless. Just get another Underground Sea. If we're not casting this trophy now, which I don't think we are, I guess we get the Bayou here so that we can cast it next turn. But it is a little bit awkward. Let's get Carrion Feeder on the go. Let's get a Gravecrawler on the go. And then let's make a Hogaak. This is the turn our opponent draws Caracas. That's usually how this works. Okay, we've got a big creature. We do have some Ether Vial goodness ticking up though. They're leaving 1 on 3. That's usually the sort of the big number in their deck, so that makes sense. Not a Wasteland. Happy to not see one of those. So Samwise could have attacked here, but they didn't, which is intriguing to me. I think we just want to hold up our interaction and just send it. Just send these two. See what our opponent's up to. He's trading here. They only save 1 damage by blocking with the Samwise here. This definitely shouts like they're going to be bringing back this, bringing back something with Samwise here. So we get a 2/2 off of the Skyclave. They're going to make a Samwise an end step. I'm pretty sure about that. Let's Cabal Therapy and see if they do it in response or not. Because why would you save that 1 damage, right? It's not worth trading this away for 1 damage unless you're about to replace it anyway. Ah, I see. Okay. Let's cast the Gravecrawler. This doesn't get stopped by a Containment Priest. Because we are casting this from our graveyard. This doesn't stop anything apart from Vengevine. What would I like to do here? I would like to flashback this Cabal Therapy. I'll get rid of this Gravecrawler. I would like to name Recruiter of the Guard, I think. So you can Extraction Specialist, which gets back Samwise, which then gets back something. So I was right thinking they had the Samwise line. Again, the Skyclave Apparition. Triggering the old Revolt on our Fatal Push is pretty elementary in our deck because of all the sacrifice shenanigans. Right, they're activating this on 3. There's a Skyclave Apparition. Not a surprise. Carrion Feeder. Sure. So that stops us recurring a zombie, but we have another zombie in hand. We can trade this off here. That seems okay. So I probably have another Samwise. A Grief. Do I want to cast this Grief? I think I do. Pitch a Carrion Feeder. Oh, they have the Plow. We're losing our Hogaak regardless. But if there's some sort of weird thing that happens when we attack, then I'd rather not get blown out by that. They're going to Plow our Hogaak. Okay. So we're going to take one of these Containment Priests. Oh, they've got Canoptic Scarab Swarm. Intriguing. Right, we'll just play the Carrion Feeder and get back our Gravecrawler. We can just keep piling on the pain with our little Carrion Feeder loops. You just pay X and put X counters on it basically every turn. We don't have a lot of mana though. And we're definitely getting towards wanting to fire off a removal spell soon. There's a Caracas. Alright, so they ploughed and then drew the Caracas. That's pretty good for us. They wasted a plough on something that they had checked by the next card that they drew. They did not attack, which is unusual. An Orcish Bowmaster. Our opponent just has a Containment Priest in hand. They have the Caracas to save the Samwise. So that doesn't seem like the best plan. We'll sacrifice his Gravecrawler. And grow our friend. We'll cast the Gravecrawler. So they can block and sort of fog this every turn if they want. Or we could attack. Wait for them to try and put the Samwise in front and bounce it. And then do our Fatal Push. I think we just pass here. Holding up our push. Are they going to try and reuse their Sam? They are. I figured that would happen. Our opponent is a 60 card build as well, so they don't have anything like Yorion to reach for. I'm surprised they are this close to Death and Taxes after the... They are just like a full Death and Taxes list that's splashing black. But in game 1, they had like Thoughtseize into Thoughtseizes off a basic Swamp, which made me think they were more towards black than white. I can't block, but I still not attack him. A Cabal Therapy. I don't hate firing one of those off, actually. Like, they've got a card we know about, and we can always just like double dip if we want to. So this is going to be the Containment Priest. Oh, it's an Orcish Bowmasters, you say? Where is this ping going to go? Alright, so we sacrifice this. They don't even get a token here. I think they're just going to play both of their cards. Yep. There's nothing left in their hands, so we just name whatever the top one there is. Okay, so we can play this Gravecrawler now. We can attack with a 3/3. They can trade like their whole board for it. Or we can just wait till next turn and just absolutely blow our opponent out with a Bowmasters on their Bowmasters if they try and do something like that. We need our opponent to not draw good this turn. No play. A Psychic Frog. A bit late in the day for that one. So if we attack with the Carrion Feeder... Yeah, I think we just attack with the Carrion Feeder and see what our opponent wants to do block-wise. So we can Bowmasters, which is additional bodies as well. Alright, so they're doing a double block here. Then we cast our Bowmasters, and we should get a nice blowout here. We take out their bow boys. This sacrifices and eats a Gravecrawler. And it can eat an Orc army token. And then it can eat both of their friends. We get another guy back. And we are quite far ahead now. But our opponent's deck has lots of good ways of working its way back into the game. Things like recruiters, just finding them the bits they need, can be a real pain for us. Alright, we're getting ploughed. I would very much like to have a basic land here. Let's go and get this swamp out of our deck. A Bridge from Below. It's a very nice thing for us to discard to our Psychic Frog. First appearance of the Frog in the league. Alright, they've had enough. We didn't really get to do much with the Frog, but we had a nice little grindy game against white removal, which felt pretty good. Yeah. Just did some classic-y Hogaak and stuff. The fact that they ploughed our Hogaak and then drew the Caracas was really clutch for this game. If those like cards had been the other way around in their deck, I think the chance of them winning this game become a lot higher. Alright, we are 1-1. Let's go to round 3. I guess we can play off of a basic swamp here. My issue is we have 2 Bridge from Below, but our hand is pretty good still. I think I will keep this. Would like a way of getting rid of these, but I think we have a hand that actually plays the game relatively well. If we can just find a second land, then we've got Supplier, Altar of Dementia, Gravecrawler loop. So we can just mill a bunch of cards. Ancient Tombs, this can be Chalice for 1? No. It's going to be some sort of Blood Moon type effect. Glaring Flesh Raker. This is one of the new cards. When they make a colourless spell, it gives them a 1-1. Sorry, 0-1. A Drowsy Spawn lets them ping some damage. Okay, do I think our opponent is going to be messing with our lands if they're playing colourless spells? I don't believe so. But we don't really have to make that decision yet anyway. We can just jam Stitcher's Supplier right now. Cabal Therapy, Carrion Feeder. Do I want to Cabal Therapy my opponent right now? I don't think I do. That could be an error. But I would like to get the Gravecrawler in first. There's an Ivugan. We're going to get Thoughtseize. Just to end this one. Alright, this is fine. So they ping us once for this coming in and once for this coming in. Attack us with a 2-2. Oh, the Vengevine, you say. So we go... Step 1, cast the Gravecrawler. Step 2, Cabal Therapy ourselves. Getting rid of the Vengevine. Then we go and cast our second spell of the turn. Our second creature spell, that is. I think we're going to get the Underground Sea so we can draw the Frog. So we cast this Gravecrawler. Get our little Vengevine back. And then we could sack this to put our Bridges from Below in. And that seems pretty good. Hold on, let me just... These are non-token, aren't they? Whenever a creature is put into opponent's graveyard from the battlefield. So they can sacrifice these to remove our Bridges. That is kind of awkward for us. I don't want to stitch a Supplier right now, because that's our only zombie to bring back the Gravecrawlers for next turn. Are we the aggro? We're on 14. This damage does mount up quite a lot. No, I think we can block with the Vengevine. And hopefully next turn we can just do like Bananas, Altar of Dementia stuff. If you've not seen it when it goes off, it is quite spectacular. Alright, so we can block here. Just trade off and we can get this back next turn if we want to anyway. We can cast a Gravecrawler. Well, we need a land to do that. But, okay. Wasteland as well. Another Vengevine. Now things are getting awkward. That Wasteland day. That's pretty backbreaking. If we've just got a swamp, we would have been okay, I think. Alright, we're attacking with the Gravecrawler. don't think I want to Cabal Therapy now, just to reset the Gravecrawler. It doesn't block, so I can take 2. I don't want to give up my Stitches Supplier for the reasons mentioned before. An Urborg. What is this? A rather large Endless one. These Eldrazi spawns being really good against our bridge from below is definitely a pain. A Bayou. Can we survive another turn? We can Bowmasters. That buys us a decent amount of time because we can certainly chump block. Alright, I think we're going to be Bowmasters chump blocking. Maybe the Fleshraker attacks and we can actually get a trade-off on that. Because that's the reach that's going to really ruin our day. We've got another follow-up here. Alright, this grows the size of all their friends. Does this mean we're pinging down one of the spawns? I think we have to. So they can sacrifice this so we don't get a thing, yeah. But our opponent is in pretty solid shape over here. So we have to block the big guy. And then we have to just use Altar of Dementia to win the game this turn. So we need a land. And some pretty nice rips off the top. But it is possible to churn for our entire deck. And win the game. Although if our opponent's got a big Eldrazi, which I doubt they do, then they'll have the shuffling clause. So we won't be able to mill them out all the way. Yeah, these spawn tokens versus our bridge from below is pretty annoying. Alright, deck. We did find a land. The land we need. So, play Undercity Sewers. Carrion Feeder. That doesn't help us here, but it's more stuff for the bin. So, we get to... If we cast Altar of Dementia, how are we getting any creatures back? We need to Cabal Therapy targeting ourselves here. And hope our opponent doesn't work out how to do what they need. So we have to play the Altar of Dementia. Yeah. And we're hoping to sacrifice this, we get some zombies this way. We're relying on our opponent making a mistake here. Which is not great for us. Alright, they knew the trick. Because basically what we do there is we sacrifice this, and if we find a Hogaak, then we can play the Hogaak with these guys, and we can sack the Hogaak, and we should be able to just take our whole library into play if our opponent doesn't do that. But alas, we are not there. So our opponent is just aggroing stuff, so I guess we're just going to be playing some more aggro, anti-aggro pieces here. Chance of them having some graveyard hate, like ley lines and stuff, is pretty likely, I would say. Which does weaken some of our outs here. Maybe we're not supposed to be doing as hard on the Altar of Dementia, but Altar of Dementia is a thing that just can win you the game out of nowhere. Which is going to be somewhat useful here. I think we need the Hogaak. Maybe we can't afford to play these Nature's Claims. Take out these... Oh, these bridges look so bad against that little Fleshraker guy. Yuck. We'll trim one of these. Bowmasters don't seem great here. They are multiple bodies, but they're not going to ping anything in our opponent's deck down. Alright, let's try this. I'm not feeling confident here. Okay, we can keep this. We can just make a big Psychic Frog if they molt a lowline. I doubt they will. They're just going to probably keep a solid aggro hand. Oh, and a leyline. Sure. So now we play out this Sewers. I think. Hogaak. That can go into the void. Let's hope the rest of the hand isn't that strong and they kept on the back of the leyline and we can just play the frog and try and win the game with the frog. A wasteland, okay. To square one again. I'll play this Bayou out and play a 2-1 for 1 mana. A Blast Zone. That can certainly defeat our Psychic Frog when the time comes. Charge the void, X equals 1. Sure. That's not what this game is about anymore. This game is about the little frog that could. So this is the exact sort of game where the frog should hopefully shine. It never gets to have flying though. But we're just going to dump a whole bunch of stuff into it. We have only 1-drops in hand. The Blast Zone being able to grow to 2 and then pop is a little scary. A Warping Whale. They would like to exile our poor little guy. Another Psychic Frog. I like having a second one. Right, we're going to discard a card. We're going to discard a card. I'm going to discard a card. I'm going to discard a card. Let's just go all in on the frog. A land. I think I'll hold this because we might just be discarding all of our cards to Psychic Frogs. I'd kind of like to diversify our Psychic Frogs if possible. Both doing stuff. Alright, we just have 2 cards to be discarded to the frog. Okay. Now we're cooking. A grief. Don't want to grief my opponent right now. I think so. Alright. Is this going to be a victory for the Psychic Frog plan? So they need 3 mana to pop this. They do have the 3rd mana in hand actually, so they can just blow up our things, right? It's awkward. Surprised I didn't play the waste there. They're going to blow up our frogs and then they're going to blow up our land. Yeah, I valued getting the extra card off of the frog more than having the blast zone only kill one of our things. Maybe that was wrong. I think we had to try and get some cards to get over the line there. That's not a threat we can play. So we're looking for frogs or more land into Vengevines. Oh yeah, more frog. Let's get frog in. Problem is, a lot of their creatures outclass ours now, and we can't make ours jump because we don't have any graveyard. Exile target creature with mana value. Excellent. Understood. And a Thoughtseize. Yikes. Well, we could draw an Abrupt Decay, not Abrupt Decay, an Assassin's Trophy, take out this Thoughtseize, and get... Okay, we'll just draw another frog. Last frog. Some massive yacht. And then this one. Okay. We'll take 4 here. A Bloodstained Mire. We don't really want that. So they can just attack with the Endless one. And hold back the Thoughtseize if they want. Yeah, maybe we're supposed to keep back that second frog, but I figured having the extra draw would be better. But it ended up just being a cantrip on the frog. If we'd have kept that back, we would have been better off, I think. So I think I can take... That one's on me. The first game we just got absolutely buried, though. But the frog looked pretty good. Let's go to the next round. Got a weird looking hand. We don't really have any engines, and we have a frog that we can't cast. I'll keep. I think I'm going to be extra conservative here and just lead out on this Carrion Feeder. And then there is a risk that our opponent just turn 1 bops us. But I would like to see if I can draw the land to cast the frog or not. Because if we can't cast a frog, then I'm more inclined to Grief Pitch it. And we'll still get the extra 1 power on this from sacrificing this while its evoke triggers on the stack. Giving ourselves slightly more options here. Because I don't know if we're going to want to pitch this Hogaak or this Psychic Frog until we see our next draw. If we have a blue land, then we can pitch the Hogaak and just play the frog. If we draw a Stitches Supplier, we can cast a Supplier, see what it does, and see if we're getting a Hogaak into play anytime soon. If our opponent has white mana, we know the Hogaak is a little bit less useful. Shatterskull. Okay. I'm definitely griefing on this turn. A Vengevine. Okay, I think we are pitch casting with... I think it's the frog here. So let's have a look at our opponent's hand first. See what flavour of Shatterskull Smashing Deck they are. Yeah, there's some stuff there, isn't there? Fury is kind of annoying. But if they pitch 2 cards at the end of the world, next turn they can play a 3-drop. We could take the Searing Spirit Guide and hope they don't draw a Soul Land, but that doesn't seem great to me. I think I would rather take this Blood Moon so we can at least cast our Vengevine down the line. And then that synergy, getting ourselves a 2/2 for 1 mana, effectively. Ancient Tombs, we're going to see the Fable here. Yeah. It's the best card our opponent has access to, it makes sense to cast it. Gravecrawler would be nice, Stitches Supplier. Bridge from Below. That looks awful here. I don't really want to trade my Carrion Feeder for a... Do I want to trade my Carrion Feeder? 1, 2... If I trade my Carrion Feeder, they can't hard cast Fury. Yuck. I hate it, but I think it's correct to attack here. Right, we're getting the trade. Because next time they could just hard cast a Fury, potentially with the treasure token, and kill our Carrion Feeder, and we get nothing out of it. This way we've at least traded for part of the Fable. They discarded both Chalices. That's interesting. And we've shown them we're a Carrion Feeder deck. Okay, they found the Blood Moon. We can beat Blood Moon. It's just irritating. There's a mountain. That is Not a useful Magic the Gathering card at this moment. But we can't cast Psychic Frog, so there's no point holding it in hand to discard stuff. When we have colourless cards like Altar of Dementia that we can actually spend that mana on. Another Fable. Yep, so we're going to be able to do the looping Fables soon. Where you target one and just basically pay X and get X, 2/2s for a turn. Right. Nothing much going on our side of the table here. So they can cast a Fury this turn if they want to do that. They just cast a Spirit Guide. Each treasure they get is just more damage on the following turn when they get more guys. A Carrion Feeder, you say? Behold the might of my 1/1 that can't block. So our opponent's going to make what? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. They have lethal if they just turn everything into 2/2s. Or their mana. So they should be able to do this. Right, or they can do this. It's attacks for 6 when they copy it. They had the win here, right? Just copying the reflection and then... Oh no, I suppose the reflection doesn't get to attack this turn. So it's still the same amount of time, right? No. They didn't have the win on that turn. What are we going to do this turn? Altar of Dementia. Nope. Okay, we got absolutely bodied there. So, Assassin's Trophy in, Nature's Claims in. On the play, I like the Thoughtseizes. I don't really like them on the draw. I don't think we can afford to do fatal pushy type stuff here. I don't mind Thoughtseizes on the play. Are we just getting rid of a bunch of our graveyard stuff? The downside of that being that is what our deck does. So, yikes. Trimming that. We shouldn't really be trimming our good stuff, really, should we? Like we do still want to do the bridge combo if possible. We bridge through Altar and just make our Hogaaks and mill our opponent out. That is a useful thing we can do. The problem with Nature's Claims is it's very bad at answering Chalice. Carrion Feeder not looking at its hottest right now. Orcish Bowmasters is pretty bad against Mono Red Prisons. We get a couple of trophies in. Grab a Nature's Claim. Grab a second Nature's Claim. Do I want more hand disruption on the play? Which go up to a 5th piece of hand disruption alongside the Grief. Maybe we'll trim one Reanimate and get 2 Thoughtseizes in there. And then on the play, on the draw, we'll do things differently. Okay, we need to stop our opponent having a Blood Moon. If I start with a ley line in play, which you tend not to see that often from Mono Red Prison now, it's more unlicensed. So, I think if we play the Carrion Feeder, we get to make it a 2/2. But if we play the Stitcher Supplier, we maybe get some more action. So I think I'm going to... We could always just exile the Assassin's Trophy. Because we don't have green right now. Okay, we're going to go for this play and hope that the Grief does enough work for us. Our opponent kept 7 though, so I'm not confident. Blood Moon, Chrome Mox, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. If we take that only red source, that's not the worst, is it? Alright, so they had a turn 1 Blood Moon that we've managed to disrupt. Did they draw any of their other fast mana? Because there's quite a bit in their deck. They did just draw a Sinner Spirit Guide. Okay. Things are now difficult. If we could just bought one more turn and got another black creature in play, that would at least open us up to a Hogaak and Altar of Dementia lines. But now we're just... Can we get there with a Grizzly Bear? So now I'm going to play the Fable. And they're quite likely to trade for our Carrion Feeder if we offer it, because then we have nothing going on. So we just kind of have to let our opponent do everything they want to do, and we're just doing nothing. I don't think our deck is powerful enough to be this cold to Blood Moon. If we'd have had some fetches, I guess we can fetch the 2 basic swamps. But that is a very narrow window in which to operate. Chandra Torch of Defiance. Yeah, I'm happy to scoop this one up. We're not going anywhere. Yikes. Bit of a tough league today. So we're going to the final round with only 1 win under our belt. So let's see if we can put the second one on. We've been keeping hands that look like this a fair bit, and they've not been playing out very well for us. So I think we're going to try and be a bit more aggressive with our mulligans. Alright, that is pretty good reward there. I think we will bin off the second altar. I'm going to be playing on a basic swamp here. Volcanic Island, we're looking at Delvers. We are looking at Dragon's Rage Channeler, sure. So we are very much in the Delver ballpark. Basic Swamp. I will play this out. And let's get our Stitch of Supplier going. Not very exciting. Polluted Delta being cracked by our opponent. Right, we're probably going to see Psychic Frog here. There it is. Okay. I'm not going to attack into our Stitch of Supplier here. A bridge from below. What is the line here? I don't really want to play into the days. But if we don't draw another land, we're going to have to play into the days anyway. Not a great spot to be in. I'm just going to get a swamp here. Keep our mana underneath us. So we could reanimate the Carrion Feeder and play a Gravecrawler. That gives us a chance to play Hogaak this turn. Let's see. Okay, we found the Hogaak. So I can cast the Hogaak. This can be dazed, but it wasn't. So now we have an 8/8. This is a little bit more like it. A Ponder. So this will allow their Psychic Frog to attack in the sky. Brainstorm. They did shuffle off the Ponder as well. They probably have Molten Collapse as their only real way of killing the Hogaak. They might have the Brazen Borrower to bounce it as well. It's going to be a relatively sticky threat. Is our opponent going to jump with the frog? They are not. A Marsh Flats. This allows us to attempt Altar of Dementia around days. Don't really want to expose the Carrion Feeder yet. So they're going to discard a card here, I would imagine. And then we will Altar of Dementia ourselves. Sacking the Gravecrawler. I'll crack this for a swamp of some description. Buy as good as anything here. See if we can get this Gravecrawler back into play. Okay, now we're going to Altar of Dementia ourselves using this Hogaak. Then we're going to bring back this Hogaak. Alright, our opponent's had enough. We managed to do the full-on Hogaak thing there. Excellent. What hate is our opponent going to have for us is the question. I think we want to play Fatal Pushes. That's a given. And I think I'm inclined to have some sort of Assassin's Trophy action. It's like a little catch-all for some scary stuff like Grafdigger's Cage, which might give us a bit of trouble. I think Vengevines are such a weird one. Like, they're a core part of what we're trying to do, but they also feel so clunky when we draw them, which is kind of our deck in a nutshell, to be honest. Get rid of these bridges. I like the frogs. Maybe we'll trim slightly on Reanimate. Not seen this troll once yet. Carrion Feeder is kind of essential for what we're doing, even though it's not very exciting. But I think we can probably trim one of these. And I think just having the scan package in is still fine. It's one of the altars. We just want to stick like a big Hogaak and it should outclass most of our opponent's threats. This hand certainly has some risk attached to it, but we're pretty close to doing our Hogaak thing, so I'm going to keep this. I will be fetching a basic swamp though. Right, they played a thing so we can fetch without worrying about Stifle. Another land wouldn't be the worst. Another land. Okay, basic swamp. I think I want to fire off this Grief. What do I want to pitch to this is the question. Like, the Psychic Frog is okay here, but maybe this game isn't about Psychic Frog. So we could Grief our opponent right now and then clap back with a Cabal Therapy. And if we keep the Cabal Therapy, it allows us to shred more in terms of our library. Fatal Push, Brainstorm, Ponder. None of these cards are exciting. Like, the Psychic Frog is the best card in their hand. The Ponder is very useful to find them some more answers. If we take the Frog, we can Cabal Therapy away. Ponder, that doesn't seem great. Cabal Therapy, Brainstorm doesn't seem great either. I think we just take the Frog and then play the Stitch of Supplier because they're unlikely to want to kill the Stitch of Supplier. A Hogaak. Okay. So we can just dump a Hogaak into play next turn, potentially. Because the fetch land will give us the additional card in our graveyard. There's that Ponder that we were expecting. Surgical would obviously be a bit rude. They binned off a Psychic Frog. They shuffled off that Ponder. There's the Polluted Delta. We're going to see a removal spell on our Supplier so that we can't get Hogaak in next turn. Or is this just more cantripping to try and find the right answers? More cantripping, sure. trying to find a way of stopping our Hogaak. That's going to be surgical or some sort of hard counterspell. But we get to Cabal Therapy our opponent first. Don't let us pause from our opponent. We gain surgically extracted. They are surgically extracting, and I assume they are targeting the Hogaak. This is unfortunate because we have another Hogaak in hand. So they did manage to find it in the end. That is a real kick. They should have done that in the draw step though, because if we could have drawn another Hogaak. A Stitcher's Supplier. I would like to attack my opponent and play this out. I would like to... I think I want to Cabal Therapy my opponent here. I would like to name Murktide Regent, given the chance. Because that is a big game ender that we can't really handle. Force of Will, Daze. Understood. Force of Will, Daze. Okay, I guess we are casting a Cabal Therapy tag on our opponent, sacrificing this Stitcher's Supplier. I will take my 2 for 1. And I don't want to play these guys out this turn because I want the chance to hit the Vengevine, and we're going to use this Surveil land in their turn. Nether Goyf. It's a 4/5. I think this card is better than I originally thought it was going to be. I don't think our opponent's running Delvers in their deck. Poor Delver. Alright, let's get our Undercity Sewers. A Fatal Push. That's kind of useful. I think I'll put that on top. So we cast the Stitcher's Supplier first. And then if it hits into a Vengevine, then we can start doing Vengevine things. If they counterspell this, then it doesn't really matter too much. They are going for the Daze. Do I want to pay to force through the Stitcher's Supplier? I think so. We need to get a little bit deeper into our deck here. This can chump block. Okay, there's a Cabal Therapy in there. We can get the Vengevine back next turn if we don't block this turn, which means we're going to take 7. But we can block the Nether Goyf after that. We got 1 card in hand. We need it to not be a good one. I think the Nether Goyf, the backup plan on it, the exiling cards in the graveyard, is rarely, if ever, going to come up. Because normally you'd much rather put a Murktide into play, unless our opponent isn't running Murktides. A Stitcher's Supplier. We need to cast a Cabal Therapy. Sorry, we need to cast a Gravecrawler and a Stitcher's Supplier to get back our Vengevine, but we also need to cast a Fatal Push this turn. A very awkward situation indeed. I'm going to take this out. We need to get rid of the flyers, you see. So we could play the Stitcher's Supplier out, and we still have access to Gravecrawler, rebuy Gravecrawler, using the Cabal Therapy. And this means that we're slightly more protected if something goes really wrong, because we have 2 blockers. Okay, so we're going to go to 2. We're going to have to chump block the Nether Goyf, and then we play the Crawler, sack it to Cabal Therapy, play the Crawler, get back the Vengevines. That is our plan for next turn. And then we can chump block with Stitcher's Supplier again. A Wasteland. That is really brutal, actually. Alright, we need to draw a swamp here. Or a land. Right, we are forced into blocking here. If we mill over 2 Vengevines, that would be handy. And then our top card of our library is an untapped land. That's what we're looking for here. Now the problem is, this Dragon's Rage Channeler is an issue for us. We can't fire this off. We can't play 2 creatures this turn. If this was discard a black card from your hand, that'd be a different thing. Is there a second Gravecrawler in here? There is not. I don't think we can beat the flyer. Nope, we got to go to game 3. We weren't a million miles away from it though. On the play, do you want to do anything differently? I'm not sure we do. I think we just want to ball in like this. I can jam with this. We got some useful cards. We can Cabal Therapy away our own bridge from below. It doesn't feel great though. I play the card of 5. I'll obviously be beginning the game with my basic land. And I will play out the Stitcher's Supplier here. A Hogaak. Okay. We're going to cop a Surgical straight up. They're going to ponder looking for one. They did not shuffle off of that ponder. Let's see what top of our library has in store for us. A Bayou. Okay, we'll play this Bayou. This is the Cabal Therapy turn, I believe. I think we named Force of Will here to begin with. Brainstorm, Brainstorm, Nethergoyf. Okay, now we go to attacks. Got our 1 point of damage in. Then we're going to name Brainstorm. I'm very happy to pay for this one. My opponent's got 3 cards in hand now. Nethergoyf, Flooded Strand, and the Underground Sea that I've accidentally clicked off there. Alright, so next turn we can Bowmasters, get ourselves 2 creatures, play a Hogaak. And that's going to be pretty good. If we find a 1-drop creature, we can really get a turn as well. Give me the Nethergoyf. Alright, our opponent's just had enough. Sure. We didn't draw the 1-mana creature there. But, yeah, pretty good show in that last round. So we finished with a 2-3, which was not great. We did make an error in one of the Eldrazi games. I think we shouldn't have played out our Frog. That definitely cost us a little bit. Now, whether or not we win that game by not playing out the Frog, I don't know, because the amount of power our opponent put into play like 2 turns later was a lot. So I'm not sure that made a difference, but it was still a wrong call for me trying to get that extra card rather than having a backup threat after they pop their Blast Zone. All right, let's talk about this list. So our deck is kind of trying to do its thing, right? And when we get to do our full thing with the, when we were doing Hogaaks in Altar of Dementias, our deck looked bananas, right? When we started just looping all that, that was like unbeatably great. But then when we have all these sort of like just playing like little one mana 1/1 guys and trying to nickel and dime our opponent, it looks pretty bad. When we're trying to do like Vengevine stuff, we had a few things where we brought back Vengevine, but this also just sat in our hands an awful lot and looked really bad. And we didn't actually get to discard things to help our engine with Psychic Frog like we're supposed to. So ordinarily you see things like Putrid Imp in this deck. So Putrid Imp is good because it's a 1-mana thing, allows you to play 2 creatures more easily for Vengevine. But I want to play Psychic Frog because this card is just better. It's just an incredible Magic the Gathering card. So playing this on turn 2, it gives us ways of pitching things off. So it kind of slows our combo down a little bit compared to Putrid Imp, but it's just much better. And as you saw in the Eldrazi matchup, we can just make a big frog and try and win the game that way. It gets through some of the hate we're facing. We're pretty busted up by Blood Moon as well, which wasn't ideal. I think trying to do this whole Griefy Scam package means that we're very light on ways of sideboarding here, because we've got like the slimmest of Hogaak packages we have. And then we're also throwing this in, which is weak to the same hate as our Hogaak plan. So I'm not, as weird as it is, I'm not entirely sure I want to be on the Scam package in a Hogaak deck right now. I think you want to try and maximize those like busted Hogaak openers. So we probably need more like draw discard effects, like a couple of Careful Studies in our deck as well. I would like some more Orcish Bowmasters. This card is obviously just very good, but the fact that it's 2 bodies to immediately allow you to cast Hogaak when you draw it is really good. So I think I would probably consider chopping these out for some other pieces. So maybe, we never cycled this anyway, so maybe we don't need this as a land, but maybe we do. It's a tough sell. But let's say we just do play this as land. So we have 8 slots to play with here. So we get 2 more Bowmasters, if we want them. We get a couple of Careful Study, and then we can play some like generic-y answer stuff if we want to. Or we can play more copies of Altar of Dementia and Bridge from Below, and maybe like another Careful Study, one of these, and then have a couple of generic-y answers, or a little bit more hand disruption to go alongside our Cabal Therapy. That's certainly one route you could take this. The other route is to go the complete other way and play into a more classic Scour list. So up our Troll of Khazad-dûm type stuff. And just play like a blue-black Scam list with Hogaaks, which is a deck that you sometimes see. Because you're putting loads of stuff in your graveyard anyway, you may as well try and have like another free way of abusing the fact that you're going to have a big graveyard and sort of go down that route. That's a different option you have. I wouldn't recommend this deck, but I think you could definitely tweak around with Hogaak and make it better than this, for sure. We did just want to play the Psychic Frog, which did look good, so maybe playing more heavily into the blue and doing some stuff with the Frog is where you want to be, because if your graveyard's unavailable to you for whatever reason, you can still just make a large Frog, and that can do some work for you. Also, This is quite useful about playing around Surgical Extraction, weirdly, because if your opponent tries to Surgical Extract your Hogaak, you can just give your creature flying by exiling Hogaak and some other stuff. So there's some interesting synergy there. It's a shame we didn't really get to use this as an enabler, but I would like to try some more frog lists using it as an enabler with its discard, as well as it being a generically good card. Not much more to say about this one. I think the Nature's Claim feels kind of awkward if we're trying to blow up things like Chalice, because it's probably going to be on 1. So I'm not really liking the Nature's Claim here. But what are we supposed to play instead is kind of the awkward one, because we don't really have amazing options available to us when we don't have enough green cards for Force of Vigor, in my opinion. You could go more heavily into green cards in the main deck, which then opens up Force of Vigor, which is something else you can think about. You could also think about going more into Graveyard synergies and playing things like Poxwalkers and some Bloodghasts and stuff like that, and just go more into, okay, we've got some cool stuff to discard to the Psychic Frog. We can make things work nicely for us. Kind of go down that sort of angle. It's something I may explore down the line, but there's so many decks I want to try with the new stuff that this is the one we settled on between me and the donor who wanted to see some frog on the channel. So I hope you enjoyed doing some frog stuff. We did a little bit of frog stuff. This was more doing Hogaak stuff, but the donor said they were very keen on Hogaak too. So a match made in heaven of busted old cards and busted new cards. So that's the end of that one, and I hope you enjoyed it. So please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And thank you so much for watching. Goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.